You're listening to Release Your Resistance with Bex Beltran, episode 92. Welcome to Release Your Resistance. This is Bex. The only reason why any of us don't have what we want in life is because of our own resistance. Right now, I'm learning how to recognize and release my resistance, and this podcast tells you how you can release your resistance so that you can live the exact life that you want. Let's get started. One area that some people have resistance to is technology. And I thought it would be kind of interesting to divide people into 3 types of tech, like I did last week when I talked about 3 types of journalers. So if we were to divide everyone in the world onto where they fell in the technology continuum, we could say that there are tech lovers, tech curious, and tech resistant, maybe? Just hearing those 3 types, where do you fit? Do you already self-identify? When I thought about this question for myself, I realized I am a tech lover, but I do not consider myself an early tech adopter. In fact, I probably am not an early adopter in anything really because I am more of a wait and see type of person. But I am definitely a tech lover because I have so many favorite things about technology and I get so delighted when technology makes my life easier. And I frequently find myself feeling very grateful for technology. I love to share my favorite tips and shortcuts and tools with other people. So for today's episode, I thought it would be interesting to give you my top 10 technology tips and tools. And I will be interested to know if you use and adore these tips and tools like I do, or if these are just so obvious to you and you can't believe I'm actually taking up podcast space to share them. And it will also be fun to find out if I mention something that you have never considered or heard about before, and now maybe this can be a new technology favorite for you as well. I made a list of 10 of my favorite technology tips and tools, and in no particular order, I will share them with you, and I am really curious to hear from you which of these jumps out to you the most. Probably my most favorite tech tool that I am so grateful for every single day and always forcefully recommend that other people adopt is organizing bookmarks to my frequently used websites into folders on my bookmark bar in Chrome. I organize them by task type. So for example, when I look across the top of my bookmark bar in my browser, I have a bookmark folder for podcasting. And inside of that, I have the links to my website, my podcast host, my Google Drive folder for my episode content. I link to the spreadsheet where I have all my episodes and all the other podcast tools that I use. So basically, every online resource that I use to organize and produce this podcast is all shortcutted or bookmarked and arranged in this podcast folder on my bookmarks bar. And that way, when I work on my podcast, I'm just going to that one folder and all of the relevant links and everything that I need, they're all there for me to get to quickly. And I have the same type of folder for social media. And I have another folder with bookmark links for everything that I use to create and manage my journals and notebooks. And everything is organized by bookmarks in folders on my bookmark bar. And I cannot overemphasize how much time this saves me and how easy it is to get to everything that I need and use frequently with just 2 clicks rather than typing in the same web addresses or navigating through the same folders and pages all the time. The second thing that I love so much, and I'm always completely delighted when I learn and remember to use a new one, is shortcut keys. You probably use or have heard of shortcut keys. The most obvious ones might be copy and paste, so Control-C, Control-V. I'm on a Mac, so I use Command-C and Command-V. And I like to get a little bit fancier. I love to open a new tab that I just shut accidentally, so it's not new. It's the one that I just accidentally closed with Shift-Command-T. And I also love my undo shortcut, which is on a Mac, it's Command-Z. So I'm sure there are so many other shortcut keys that I use regularly and I don't even realize, and probably more that I forget to use. But I really love the idea of quick little shortcuts that I can just do with a few fingers and just get the job done. Another one of my most favorite tech tips that I just love so much is the Format Painter. This tool looks like a little paint roller in Google Docs and Sheets, and in Microsoft, I believe it looks like a little paintbrush, or at least it used to. So this magical tool is the digital equivalent of the expression painting with a broad brush. If you are copying and pasting text or data from one place to another, you can change the formatting so that it all matches. It's like picking up the paint or the format from one set of text or data and then painting that formatting onto the new text or data so that everything matches and it all looks uniform. And this is such a time saver. It means that I don't have to search and figure out what font this is or what size it is. I don't have to know the tabs or the indentations or the alignment. The Format Painter just does it all for me. The fourth tech tip that I have for you is something that I had a lot of resistance to when I first started using it. I found it a little confusing and overwhelming. But once I watched a few videos and really figured out how to use it, I started using it and loving it. I still use it and love it to this day, even though I'm not using it the same way as when I first got it. And the tool is Evernote. Evernote is a note-taking and note organizational software and so much more. I really like it because it is a metaphor for writing notes in notebooks and then putting all those notebooks into different stacks. So you can imagine physical stacks of notebooks. Here is a stack of notebooks all about real estate. Here is a stack of notebooks all about my podcast. Here's a stack of notebooks all about recipes that I want to try one day. And in the recipe stack, you can have a notebook for drink recipes and a notebook for food recipes and a notebook for desserts. And then inside each of those notebooks, that's where you will find the individual notes. So that's the metaphor of what Evernote is. And it's just a digital way to organize your notes into notebooks and then into stacks of notebooks. And it's all searchable and customizable. And you have all the features of word processing inside. So you can clip things from the web and save it to a note or a notebook. Evernote has so many great features. And the reason that I find it so helpful for me is because it syncs between my computer and my phone. So sometimes I'll make a note while I'm typing on my computer using my keyboard, and then I can pull up that same note on my phone in Evernote and copy and paste it into different apps, like a social media app or a text message. And then I still have that note sitting there in Evernote so I can reuse it or repurpose it or come back to it later. I used to call Evernote my digital brain because I could put everything that I wanted to remember into it and then just use the search feature to call it up when I needed it. The fifth tool to tell you about is something that I first started using in Evernote because, like many programs, Evernote does let me take notes via dictation. I can basically dictate my notes while I walk. The one problem with it, which wasn't even really that big of a problem, is that I would only have a certain amount of time before I would need to restart the dictation. I would be dictating, saying what I was saying, and then the program would be typing out what I was saying into a note for me, but then I would get this little bing, this little tone, and so then I would have to go back and hit the microphone button again to continue recording. So now I'm using a new program that lets me dictate and it transcribes as I talk, and I can just keep on going and talking and rambling, and I never get that little tone telling me I need to start re-recording. And this tool that I'm currently using for dictation and transcription is called Otter AI. So it's OTTER, like the little animal, .ai. I am currently using the free account, although I would be happy to upgrade to the paid account. I just haven't needed to yet. And I love that it transcribes things for me and it allows me to dictate what I am thinking. And then I have it in a written format that I can copy and paste and edit and rearrange and use in different places. The next one that I'm going to tell you about is getting a little bit more into the geeky, techie category, at least by my standards. So don't let it throw you off if you are tech resistant. I've got more tips and tools to share. The sixth tool is another one that I have used for years, and I'm continuing to find so many new applications for it. I really didn't think I would continue using it after I stopped working in an administrative role, but I just keep on remembering it and it keeps on popping up for me right when I need it. So a couple of years ago, I wanted a tool that was kind of like mail merge. You know, mail merge, that's when you're going to write the same form letter to 50 different people, but there's some slightly different details for each. So like the address and maybe the salutation. So a mail merge program deposits all the individual information into a form letter template for you so that all the relevant details are nicely formatted. When I needed this feature a few years back, I Googled around to find the solution, and I found something that worked on Google Sheets, and it's an add-on called Autocrat. Autocrat. So I started using it, and it definitely saved me time, and it really cut down on my copy and paste errors, and it eliminated all that manual copying and pasting that I had been doing, and it was just such a great organizational tool and time saver. And fast forward now to the present, I recently realized that I can use Autocrat to help me with my journal and notebook creation. Most specifically for when I have, for example, 50 different journal prompts that I want to put on the top of 50 different pages of a journal. I have been able to put all the information that I want in the journal into a Google Sheet and then use Autocrat to distribute it all across the pages. And it's quick and effortless and automatic, and it disperses all of the information from the spreadsheet onto the journal pages for me, formatted exactly how I want it. So it has been such a great time saver for me, and I'm just so delighted that something that I looked for as a solution years ago is still serving me today, and something that I would have never considered that I would need it for. The next tech tip that I have for you is probably so obvious. I referred to it a moment ago, so telling you about it now is more of a reminder. It is one of my favorite and most used tech tips. So if you're not currently doing this as a habit, I highly recommend that you start. And here it is. One of my favorite tech tips is to Google the exact problem. If I cannot figure out how to do something on my phone, I'll Google it. If someone else is having a tech issue, I just think to myself, if there was a tech guru standing next to me, what would I ask? And then I type that question into Google and I get the answer. It's amazing. I highly, highly, highly recommend that every single time you have a tech problem or question, or really even any type of problem or question, you might as well throw it into Google just to see if you get a relevant or helpful answer. Maybe you'll get the immediate solution. Maybe not. Maybe that was a waste of 1 minute of your time. But most likely, it will solve your problem and reduce your frustration and save you hours of trying to figure it out on your own. And tool number 8 is kind of counterintuitive for me because it's a notebook. And it's not one of my notebooks. This is a tech tool that I discovered and started using last year because I am a note taker. I am a list maker. I do like to write things down by hand. That included, past tense, my client notes when I was on coaching calls. Last year, I was still using office supply notebooks. They look like shorter legal pads that are white, not yellow. I was still using so many of them, and I had stacks and stacks of these pads of paper, and they were just so hard to search through and refer back to. For example, if I knew I had written something down and I had to flip through multiple pages in multiple notebooks to find that specific note. And the notebooks were kind of hard to organize because I had multiple clients per notebook, but I tried to keep the client sessions continuous even though the calls were weeks apart. So I kept having to jump from notebook to notebook. and it was not very workable, but it did give me the benefit that I wanted of being able to write by hand, which was something that I thought was really important to me at the time. I found a solution called Rocketbook. Basically, it is a spiral-bound notebook that instead of paper pages has dry erase pages. You do have to use special pens, and then you're able to scan the pages with the app on your phone, and Rocketbook will send it to whatever destination you identify. So Rocketbook could send it to my Google Drive, or it could send it to my Evernote. It could transcribe what I wrote and send it to my email, or it could just save it in the Rocketbook app. And I love that I can tell Rocketbook to translate my handwriting into text. And that way I still have the option to go back and copy and paste my writing, and I don't have to spend time typing up my own notes. Rocketbook notes are searchable, so if I know that I talked with someone about a relationship problem, I can just type in the search on the app, relationship problem, and it will pull up all the notes that I've scanned that have used those specific words. I am just so in awe of technology that this kind of product exists. I don't use it quite as much now as I used to anymore because I have since switched to typing my notes during coaching calls instead of handwriting them, but I mostly use my Rocketbook now for idea generation. I will make a list of ideas for a journal that I'm working on or the outline for something that I want to create, and then I'll go and do it. And then I can just erase the page because the pages are dry erase. So instead of using paper pages, one each time, I can brainstorm and write out my idea and then immediately put it into action and erase it, or I could scan it into Rocketbook and that will be organized for me. The next tech tools, plural, that I love so much and I use all the time started out with some resistance to one of them I'm going to tell you about. And I'm talking about online graphic design tools. I have been using PicMonkey for years to create graphics and design art and create vision boards and all sorts of personal uses. And now I use it to create my notebook covers and some of my notebook interiors, and I love PicMonkey. I am very comfortable with it. I've happily paid for the basic subscription for many years, and earlier this year I even upgraded to unlock some of the more premium features, and that was just such a great investment because I got tools and options that I didn't even know that I was missing out on. So I am 100% on board with the cost of that upgrade. And in the meantime, because I was teaching some social media workshops and I wanted the members of the workshops to have the option of a free editing software, I decided that I would always teach in a different online graphic design tool called Canva. But Canva wasn't as familiar or as intuitive to me as PicMonkey was, which is why I had some resistance to using it. So I decided I had to improve my knowledge and skills because I was going to use it to teach. And I really found out that I like a lot of the features. So it is interesting that there are still things about PicMonkey that are so much better and so much more intuitive to me that I can do much more quickly and easily in PicMonkey, but then there are some elements of Canva that PicMonkey doesn't have that I think are better in Canva. And now I just love that both of these programs exist and that I can use both of them and that they let me be so creative and so artistic and they let me produce exactly what I want to produce. And even though I talked about two different tools just now, we will combine them together and call that number 9. So here comes number 10. My number 10 tech tip that I will share with you in case you find it helpful and in case you have a Gmail email account is to use the filters to auto-sort some of your emails. I'm sure we all get a lot of emails. I am quick to subscribe to something new if I'm interested in it, and I'm equally quick to unsubscribe if it's something that I don't want to see or I don't need anymore. So for me, when I unsubscribe, it doesn't mean that I hate the sender or the brand or that they did something wrong. It just means that I don't want to see them as frequently as I'm seeing them in my inbox at the moment. And I know I can always have the option to come back and resubscribe. So that's just a little side note. Not really part of this tip, number 10, but if you get emails from me and it's too much, go ahead and unsubscribe. No hard feelings, because I know whenever you are ready to hear from me again, you'll come back. You'll find my email sign up again, either on the favorites tab at bexb.org or by going to bexb.org/newsletter, and then you can just rejoin. But back to the 10th item on this favorite tech list. My trick that I am using in Gmail, and I even hesitate to call it a trick because it's not a secret and people use it all the time, but just to share it with you, it's to use filters. This way, I still receive and get the emails that I don't necessarily want to unsubscribe from, because I do want to be able to go back and look at them when I want to see them. I don't want to see them when they send them to me. So the way to do this is to go into settings of Gmail, go to filters, and create a filter so that Gmail automatically sorts those into a file. And you don't have to look at them unless you get curious about what they're up to, or if you want to check to see if there's a promotion or a launch, or if you're feeling like getting caught up with what that person or that brand has been sending out. So I highly recommend filtering your emails if you feel overwhelmed or frustrated by the amount of emails that you're getting, but you still want to get them. You don't want to unsubscribe. So this puts you in control of the frequency and timing of when you look at those emails. What do you think? Those are 10 of my favorite tech tips and tricks. I was going to also give a few bonuses of some of my favorite apps that I love, but this episode is already so long. So if you liked this departure of topic and you do want to hear about my favorite apps, let me know. Maybe that can be an upcoming episode. Now I want to hear from you. Did you get any new ideas as you listened today? Did you get reminded of a technology tip or tool that you haven't used lately? Were all of these just completely obvious and common to you? And if so, I want to hear your favorite tips and tricks that I probably don't know about. And just a final note for any tech-resistant and even tech-curious people who stuck it through to the end here, thank you so much for listening all the way through. I really do not consider myself a techie person or a technology expert, even though I do love technology. But as you know, I specialize in helping people recognize and release resistance. So if you have technology resistance, I may be able to help you with a more hands-on approach through tech tutoring. It's so exciting and empowering when you adopt a new technology that makes things easier that you thought you'd never be able to master. So if you want to schedule a one-off tech tutoring session with me, either by yourself or with a small group, just go to my website at bexb.org/coaching and select the single coaching session. And we can do it on Zoom and share screens so that we can follow and see how we're both navigating around on our screens. Or if you're local to me here in the East Valley of the Phoenix area in Arizona, we might be able to schedule an in-person session. So thank you so much for listening today. I hope you enjoyed hearing about 10 of my favorite tech tips and tools, and I will talk with you next week. This has been Release Your Resistance. Thank you for listening. If you like this podcast, make sure you're subscribed and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Also, think about someone who you know who would love this episode and share it with them. There should be a share button on your app if you're listening to this on your phone. If you'd like to continue this conversation one-on-one or in real time, come visit me on my site at bexb.org to see how we can work together.